Most men don't realize they're failing in love while it's happening. They think the problem is timing. Or effort. Or the wrong woman. So they try harder. They give more. They wait longer. And somehow, things still fall apart. If you've ever felt that the more invested you became, the less respected you were. This isn't bad luck. It's a pattern. A pattern that traps nearly 80% of men, not because they are weak, but because they were never taught where their strength actually comes from. This video is not about dating tricks or emotional games. It's about the one internal mistake that quietly destroys attraction, respect, and polarity, again and again. If you're tired of confusion, emotional exhaustion, and repeating the same ending with different women, stay with me. What you're about to hear won't flatter you. But it might finally set you free. Welcome to the channel, Stoic Love Wisdom. This is where every story and lesson about love will help you find the answer. Today, we will explore a new perspective through the topic, why do 80% of men fail in love because of these things? These are real-life experiences and profound lessons that will change the way you perceive love. Follow me, because the most surprising and interesting things are still waiting for you ahead. Before starting, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and relax your mind. Let the sharing in this video help you feel more fully and enjoy every meaningful moment. Are you ready to embark on this journey? Let's begin. Part 1, the silent mistake most men never notice. Most men don't fail in love because they are bad men. They fail because they are unanchored men. I didn't understand this when I was younger. I thought love failed me. I thought women were confusing, inconsistent, impossible to understand. But the truth was harder to swallow. I was entering relationships without a center. And that mistake alone explains why most men lose respect, attraction, and themselves, often without realizing when it happened. The invisible pattern behind most failures. Watch closely and you'll see the same pattern repeat. A man meets a woman. He feels connection. He feels potential. And then, slowly, he starts bending. He adjusts his schedule. He softens his opinions. He suppresses discomfort. He invests faster than he should. Not because she asks him to, but because he fears losing her. This is where the failure begins. Not with arguments. Not with betrayal. But with self-abandonment. Why 80% of men lose in love before it even begins. Here is the truth no one teaches men. Most men enter love hoping to be completed, not expressing who they already are. They bring emotional hunger, unresolved insecurity, a need to be chosen, a desire to be validated. And they call it love. But need is not attractive. Need is heavy. Need demands. A man who needs love will always negotiate his worth to keep it. The Stoic diagnosis, lack of inner authority. Stoicism doesn't blame women. It looks inward. A Stoic man asks, where did I give up control of myself? The answer is almost always the same. He gave emotional authority to someone else. His mood depended on her attention. His confidence depended on her approval. His peace depended on her consistency. Once that happens, attraction begins to decay. Not immediately. Quietly. Why women sense this before men do? Women don't sit down and analyze your psychology. They feel it. They feel when a man is grounded. They feel when he is performing. They feel when his presence is solid, or when it's leaning. A man who leans too much communicates one thing. I am unsure of my own value. And uncertainty is contagious. When a man is unsure of himself, she becomes unsure of him. The myth of trying harder. When things start slipping, most men make the worst possible move. They try harder. More messages. More explanations. More reassurance. More emotional labor. They believe effort will fix imbalance. But effort without self-respect accelerates loss. Trying harder from a weak position doesn't restore attraction. It confirms the weakness. Why good men lose and don't understand why. This is the most painful part. Many men who fail in love are not selfish. They are generous. They listen. They care deeply. But they confuse being good with being boundaryless. They mistake emotional availability for emotional dependence. They mistake patience for tolerance. They mistake love for sacrifice of self. And slowly, they become less respected. Not because they are bad men, but because they stopped standing upright. The Stoic rule most men never learn. A Stoic man lives by a simple rule. Nothing is worth losing your inner order. Not love. Not attention. Not companionship. Once you violate your inner order, everything else becomes unstable. A relationship built on self-betrayal cannot survive. Even if it starts passionately. Where this series is going. In this series, I'm not going to teach you texting tactics, psychological tricks, ways to manipulate attraction. Those things create short-term reactions, not lasting respect. Instead, we will dismantle the core flaw that causes most men to fail. Emotional dependence. Lack of boundaries. Fear of loss. Attachment to outcomes. And we will rebuild something stronger. In part 2, we will expose the real reason most men become unattractive over time. They turn love into a source of identity instead of an addition to life. That single shift destroys polarity, respect, and desire. If you've ever wondered why things start strong and end in confusion, this is where the truth begins. Have you ever realized that, in love, moments of silence are sometimes more powerful than 1,000 words? Because in silence, we can hear our heartbeat more clearly and feel the presence of the other person more deeply. Here, I want to explore with you that strength, peace, and stability even when love goes through challenges. If you feel that these shares bring you something positive, please click like to support. And if you haven't clicked subscribe, do it now, so you don't miss any insight into love and maturity. I also hope to hear your story. What is the most valuable lesson that love has taught you? Please share in the comments section so we can learn and be inspired together. Come on, let's move on to the next part with a more prepared mind. Part 2, When love becomes identity, attraction dies. Most men don't realize when it happens. There is no dramatic moment. No clear line crossed. One day, love quietly stops being something they experience. And starts becoming something they are. And that is when attraction begins to die. The most dangerous shift a man can make. A man should have many pillars. Purpose. Discipline. Values. Direction. Love should be one pillar among many. But for most men, love becomes the foundation. His sense of self slowly rearranges around the relationship. His routine adapts. His priorities soften. His ambition waits. Not because she demands it, but because he feels complete for the first time. That feeling is intoxicating. And it is dangerous. Why identity-based love is heavy. When love becomes identity, pressure enters the relationship. She is no longer just a partner. She becomes emotional regulator. Source of confidence. Proof of worth. Without saying it, the man communicates. If this ends, I fall apart. And no one wants to carry that weight. Desire requires freedom. Identity-based attachment removes it. The Stoic warning men ignore. Epictetus warned that the fastest way to lose freedom is to tie your sense of self to something you do not control. A relationship is not fully in your control. Another person's feelings are not yours to command. When your identity depends on them, you surrender authority over yourself. And authority is attractive. Dependence is not. How men shrink without noticing. Men don't collapse overnight. They shrink gradually. They stop challenging. They stop leading. They stop saying no. They become agreeable instead of grounded. Understanding instead of self-directed. They think they're becoming better partners. What they're actually becoming is less defined. And undefined men are difficult to respect. Why attraction needs polarity. Attraction is tension. Not conflict, contrast. It requires two whole individuals moving side by side. Not one orbiting the other. When a man's life begins to revolve around a relationship, polarity disappears. And without polarity, desire fades. Even if affection remains. This is why so many relationships turn into emotional friendships. Safe. Predictable. Empty. The lie men are sold about losing yourself. You've heard it before. Love means sacrifice. That is a half-truth. Love requires compromise. It does not require self-erasure. A man who abandons his edge, mission, or direction to preserve harmony will eventually be resented for it. By himself and by her. Because deep down, she sensed who he was at the beginning. And now he's gone. Why women pull away when men attach deeper. This confuses many men. They think, I'm more invested now, why is she pulling away? Because investment without independence feels like pressure. When your emotional weight increases, but your groundedness decreases, the balance breaks. Pulling away is often not rejection. It's instinctive self-protection. The Stoic alternative, love as expression, not identity. A Stoic man does not define himself by love. He defines himself by how he lives, how he responds to adversity, how he governs his emotions. Love flows from his life, not into it. He invites someone into his world. He does not abandon his world for someone. This distinction changes everything. The question every man must answer. Ask yourself honestly. If this relationship ended tomorrow, what remains? Your routines. Your discipline. Your mission. Your self-respect. Or just emptiness and confusion? Most men fail in love. Because they bring emptiness. And hope love will fill it. Stoic men build fullness first. Love then becomes a choice. Not a necessity. Where this leads next. In part 3, we'll confront the next failure point. Why men lose attraction the moment they stop enforcing boundaries, and mistake tolerance for maturity. This is where nice men lose everything. While thinking they're doing the right thing. Part 3, when men abandon boundaries, respect disappears. Most men don't lose love suddenly. They lose it slowly. The moment they stop defending their boundaries and start calling it understanding. I've lived this mistake. And I've watched countless men repeat it without knowing why things feel wrong. Why men confuse boundaries with ego. Men are taught that boundaries are selfish. That asserting needs is immature. That real love means patience without limits. So when discomfort appears, they stay silent. They tolerate things they shouldn't. Disrespect disguised as jokes. Inconsistency excused as stress. Emotional withdrawal normalized. Broken agreements minimized. They tell themselves, I'm being mature. What they're really doing is training others how to treat them. The Stoic definition of a boundary. A boundary is not a threat. It is not control. It is not anger. A boundary is self-definition. Marcus Aurelius believed that a man should never act against his principles to gain approval. A Stoic man does not argue his boundaries. He lives them. When something violates his values, he adjusts his presence. Less access. Less emotional investment. More distance. Calmly. Without drama. Why tolerance is often fear in disguise. Men tolerate disrespect because they fear loss. Loss of connection. Loss of intimacy. Loss of being chosen. So they stay. They rationalize. They overthink. They hope things will improve. But tolerance without limits sends one clear message. I need this more than I respect myself. And the moment that message is felt, attraction erodes. The psychological shift that kills desire. Desire needs polarity. Polarity needs distinction. Distinction requires boundaries. When a man becomes endlessly flexible, he becomes indistinct, predictable, safe, emotionally flat. And while safety matters, desire fades without edge. This is why many relationships don't explode. They decay. Quietly. Politely. Painfully. Why silence is sometimes the strongest response. Weak men explain. Strong men observe. When a boundary is crossed, most men rush to talk. They justify. They plead. They negotiate. The Stoic man does something different. He notices, and steps back. Not to punish. Not to manipulate. But to realign with himself. Silence, when grounded, is not avoidance. It is clarity. Walking away is not failure. This is where many men get trapped. They believe walking away means giving up. That leaving means losing. The truth is the opposite. A man who cannot walk away has already lost power. The ability to leave without resentment is the ultimate boundary. It says, I will not remain where I am not respected. And that statement changes how people relate to you. Why boundaries create safety, not distance. Here's the paradox most men don't understand. Boundaries don't push people away. They create emotional safety. A woman may test boundaries unconsciously. Not to dominate. But to see if a man can hold his ground. A man who collapses under pressure does not feel stable. A man who remains calm and firm does. Stability is attractive. The cost of staying too long. Every time you stay where your values are violated, you lose a piece of yourself. That loss accumulates. It shows in your posture, your voice, your presence. Eventually, the relationship reflects that loss back to you. Resentment replaces desire. Frustration replaces intimacy. And men wonder how things went wrong. The rule Stoic men live by. Here is the rule that separates men who are respected from men who are tolerated. Never sacrifice self-respect for temporary connection. Connection built on self-betrayal always collapses. Sometimes slowly. Sometimes brutally. But always completely. Where this takes us next. In part 4, we will address the fear behind all of this. Attachment to outcomes, and why the inability to let go keeps most men trapped in failing relationships. This is where Stoic detachment becomes not emotional coldness, but emotional freedom. In love, sometimes silence is the answer. It gives us time to listen to ourselves and understand the other person's heart better. That's also the reason I share stories on this channel, so that you have a pause, a peaceful space to reflect. If you find this meaningful, please click like and don't forget to subscribe, so that we can continue to accompany each other on the journey to find a peaceful and profound love. Now, let's continue the rest with me. Part 4, Attachment to Outcomes, the Fear That Keeps Men Stuck. Most men don't stay in failing relationships because they're blind. They stay because they're afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of starting over. Afraid of admitting they invested in the wrong place. This fear has a name. Attachment to outcomes. And it quietly destroys masculine strength. What attachment really looks like. Attachment doesn't always look desperate. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like hope. Sometimes it looks like loyalty. But underneath, there is fear. The fear that if this ends, nothing better will come. So men tolerate stagnation. They endure confusion. They accept emotional crumbs. Not because they are weak, but because they are attached. The Stoic law of freedom. Epictetus taught that freedom begins the moment you release attachment to what you cannot control. You cannot control how long someone stays, how deeply they love, whether they grow with you. Trying to secure these outcomes turns a man into a negotiator of his own dignity. The Stoic man focuses on conduct, not results. Why outcome-focused men lose power? When your focus is on outcomes, your behavior changes. You become cautious instead of clear. You avoid conflict instead of addressing it. You stay silent instead of truthful. You trade truth for hope. And hope without action is how men get stuck for years. The fear of letting go. Letting go feels like failure. To men who tie their worth to outcomes. They think, if I walk away, it means I wasn't enough. But Stoicism reframes this completely. Walking away is not rejection of yourself. It is loyalty to your values. Sometimes the strongest move is not persistence, but withdrawal. Why detachment is power, not coldness. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means you stop gripping outcomes and start governing yourself. A detached man still feels. He still desires. He still loves. But he does not panic when things change. He does not chase clarity. He allows truth to reveal itself. This calm unsettles people, because it reveals who is grounded and who is not. Why men fear empty space. Most men fear endings, because they fear the space after. Silence. Solitude. Uncertainty. They rush to fill that space with someone. Anyone. Stoic men sit in that space. They build. They refine. They strengthen. They understand. What you cannot sit with, you will always cling to. The hidden cost of staying attached. Attachment drains energy. It keeps you emotionally vigilant. Always monitoring. Always waiting. Your life pauses. Ambition dulls. Discipline slips. Presence weakens. And attraction dies. Not because of one mistake, but because of prolonged misalignment. The Stoic choice. At some point, every man must choose. Do I choose comfort? Or alignment? Do I choose hope? Or self-respect? Stoic men choose alignment. They accept loss. They accept endings. They accept uncertainty. And in doing so, they reclaim power. Where this series concludes. In part 5, we will bring everything together. Why men who stop chasing outcomes, stop needing validation, and live in alignment become naturally respected, and rarely fail in love. Not because they are perfect, but because they are whole. Part 5. Why aligned men rarely fail in love. After years of watching men struggle in love, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Men don't fail in love because they lack effort. They fail because they lack alignment. When a man is not aligned internally, every relationship becomes a negotiation. When he is aligned, love becomes a byproduct, not a battlefield. What alignment really means? Alignment is the harmony between values, actions, emotional responses. An aligned man does not split himself. He does not act confident while feeling insecure. He does not preach boundaries while fearing loss. He does not talk about self-respect while betraying it. His inner world matches his outer behavior. That coherence creates strength. Why aligned men are rare. Alignment requires honesty. Not with others, but with oneself. Most men avoid it. They distract. They rationalize. They postpone hard decisions. They stay in relationships that drain them, because leaving would expose emptiness. Aligned men face emptiness early. They build from there. The Stoic Center. Marcus Aurelius believed a man should never compromise his character for comfort. The Stoic man asks one question daily. Did I act in accordance with my values today? That question governs everything. Dating, love, conflict, loss. And because of that, his life has direction. Why aligned men don't chase. Chasing comes from imbalance. A man chases when he wants something, to compensate for what he lacks. Aligned men don't need compensation. They already have foundation. They invite. They observe. They choose. And if alignment disappears, they leave, without resentment. Why respect comes first. Aligned men prioritize respect over validation. They would rather be alone than misaligned. They would rather lose a relationship than lose themselves. This makes them unpredictable. Not in behavior, but in standards. And standards create gravity. The end of emotional chaos. An aligned man does not overreact. He does not spiral. He does not beg. He addresses issues directly. He walks away when needed. He grieves cleanly. No drama. No manipulation. No collapse. That emotional order is felt by everyone around him. Why these men rarely fail in love. Aligned men may still experience breakups. They may still feel pain. But they do not fail in love. Because they never abandon themselves. Every relationship either aligns and grows, reveals misalignment and ends. Both outcomes are wins. There is no confusion. No resentment. No loss of dignity. The final truth most men resist. Here is the truth that changes everything. Love does not fail men. Men fail themselves before love ever gets the chance. When a man stands firmly in who he is, love either meets him there, or moves aside. And both outcomes preserve respect. The end of the pattern. Most men repeat the same mistakes. With different women. Aligned men break the pattern. They stop chasing. They stop negotiating. They stop fearing loss. They become steady. And steadiness is what love trusts. The closing principle. If you remember nothing else, remember this. The moment you stop needing love to validate you, you become capable of receiving it fully. That is why aligned men rarely fail in love. Because even when love ends, they remain whole. Conclusion. Most men don't fail in love because they lack heart, effort, or good intentions. They fail because they enter love unrooted, without a firm sense of self to stand on when emotions begin to shift. When a man looks to love to complete him, guide him, or stabilize him, he quietly hands over his power. His mood follows her attention. His confidence follows her approval. His direction bends to preserve the relationship. And in that moment, failure has already begun. Stoic wisdom teaches a different path. Love is not meant to be a foundation, it is meant to be an addition. A man must first build inner order. Values he does not negotiate, discipline he does not abandon, and self-respect he does not trade for affection. Men who fail in love chase outcomes. Men who succeed live in alignment. Aligned men do not beg for clarity or fear endings. They speak honestly, enforce boundaries calmly, and let go without bitterness. They understand that losing a relationship is painful, but losing themselves is permanent. This is why most men repeat the same patterns with different partners, while a small minority break free. The difference is not charm, status, or luck. It is inner authority. When a man stands rooted in who he is, love responds differently. It no longer tests his worth. It meets him at eye level, or steps aside. And either way, he remains intact. That is the lesson most men learn too late. Love does not reward need. It respects wholeness. Stop trying to be chosen. Choose alignment instead. Because the man who does not abandon himself is the man who rarely fails in love. Thank you for watching today's video. I'm so happy to share my lessons about love and relationships with you. I hope you learned something new and can apply it to your life. If you find the video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you for always accompanying and supporting me. Wish you a good day and don't forget to love yourself a lot.